to a century in prison, but the fear and terror he left in his wake still haunts.
And Kubler takes you inside a criminal mastermind.
But one of them told me to shut up and be quiet, but I figured.
Imagine being arrested for a crime you didn't commit, locked in an interrogation room for 12 hours, and still walking out free. Jeff Pearson did just that, outsmarting the police at every turn. From denying the robbery to using every legal trick in the book, he turned a routine arrest into a masterclass in defense. Want to know how he did it? You won't believe the tactics he used to beat the system. This story is one you don't want to miss. Prepare to be amazed by his genius. On a seemingly regular evening in 2011, alarm bells rang out at a local 7-Eleven in Georgia. Reports flooded in of an armed robbery, sending police rushing to the scene. But by the time they arrived, the suspect had vanished without a trace. With no immediate leads, the police expanded their search, unsure of where the suspect had gone. Hours later, police heard commotion coming from a nearby house. As they investigated, they found Jeff Pearson, a known heroin addict, sitting inside with a gun. The situation seemed suspicious, and they quickly arrested him. Though they had no solid evidence, Jeff was taken into custody for further questioning. What started as a routine robbery investigation soon turned into an intense battle of wits between Jeff Pearson and the police. A battle that would go down in history as one of the most remarkable interrogations ever recorded. Little did the officers know, they were about to meet their match in Jeff. After the 7-Eleven robbery on September 25, 2011, the search for the suspect intensified. The police scoured the surrounding areas, hoping to find a trace of the thief. Hours passed with no sign of the suspect until, suddenly, a break in the case emerged. The officers heard noise coming from a nearby house. Upon rushing to investigate, they discovered Jeff Pearson, a known heroin addict, sitting inside with a gun. He was alone, and his presence seemed suspicious. However, there was no immediate evidence linking him to the robbery. Despite having no clear proof, the police took Jeff into custody, hoping that further questioning would yield some answers. With nothing else to go on, they moved forward, unaware that the next 24 hours would turn into a legal masterclass as Jeff outsmarted them at every turn. After being arrested, Jeff Pearson was taken to a police interrogation room. The scene was set for what would become one of the most iconic interrogations in police history. Despite being in the midst of severe heroin withdrawal, Jeff remained calm and composed, immediately displaying his knowledge of the system. The police attempted to pressure him for a confession, but Jeff wasn't easily swayed. His behavior was a masterclass in legal defense. From the moment the officers started their questioning, it was clear. Jeff wasn't going to make things easy for them. He stood firm, never revealing any information, never slipping up. His ability to stay silent and assert his rights made the detective's job incredibly difficult. The officers were desperate, but Jeff was in complete control of the situation, making this interrogation one for the books. What followed was a display of legal knowledge and psychological resilience, as Jeff Pearson outwitted the police at every turn. When the interrogation began, Jeff Pearson was read his Miranda rights by the detective, explaining that he had the right to remain silent and to have an attorney present during questioning. From the very start, Jeff demonstrated an understanding of his rights, asking if he was under arrest and on what grounds. As the detective read the rights, Jeff paid close attention. Most suspects might overlook this part due to nervousness or panic, but not Jeff. He knew exactly what the rights meant for him: the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. The detective pressed on, trying to engage Jeff in conversation, but Jeff's response was clear. He wasn't going to talk without legal representation. He wasn't intimidated by the usual tactics used to extract confessions. Instead, he stayed silent, showcasing how vital it is to recognize these rights in a situation like this. Jeff's choice to remain silent was a crucial step in defending himself against the charges, marking the beginning of his battle against the police's interrogation methods. As the interrogation continued, the detective used various psychological tactics to try and break Jeff Pearson. From subtle body language to direct questions, the officer attempted to push Jeff into making a confession. However, Jeff's responses remained calm and calculated, refusing to engage in any of the techniques being used. One common tactic was the red technique, a method designed to make the suspect feel guilty or cornered. The detective attempted to lead Jeff into agreeing with a false narrative, suggesting that Jeff had committed the armed robbery and was only denying it to avoid further consequences. They also tried to manipulate him by claiming they had evidence they didn't actually have, hoping to scare him into confessing. But Jeff wasn't fooled. Despite the pressure, he stuck to his story and remained silent when necessary. His ability to avoid falling for these tricks and stay focused on his rights and his defense was impressive. Through every move the police made, Jeff stood strong, leaving the officers frustrated and empty-handed. As the hours wore on, the detective became increasingly desperate. Knowing he had no real evidence to pin the robbery on Jeff Pearson, he shifted his approach. The officer began offering deals, suggesting that if Jeff helped them with the case, he could improve his situation, perhaps even with his parole officer. The detective tried to create a false sense of hope by claiming that any cooperation would benefit Jeff in the long run. But Jeff immediately saw through the offer, dismissing it as empty. The detective's tone became more insistent, with an attempt to bargain and plead, hoping that Jeff might crack under pressure. However, Jeff remained firm. He refused to fall for these tactics, knowing they were designed to manipulate him into confessing to a crime he didn't commit. He knew that his silence was his best defense, and every attempt by the detective to offer leniency only reinforced Jeff's resolve to stand his ground. The officer's frustration mounted as Jeff continued to shut down all of his attempts. After 12 hours of intense questioning, Jeff Pearson stood victorious. Despite the police's relentless efforts to break him, he never gave in. The detectives had no confession, no evidence, and no real way to link him to the armed robbery. Throughout the entire ordeal, Jeff held his ground, skillfully using his rights to remain silent and refusing to sign anything or provide any information. Frustrated and defeated, the police eventually had no choice but to release him. It was a rare moment where a suspect not only outsmarted the police, but also avoided the potential decades in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Jeff's ability to handle the pressure and manipulate the situation to his advantage left a lasting impression on everyone involved. After his release, Jeff went on to turn his life around. He gave up heroin and even used his YouTube channel to share his story, helping others avoid the same pitfalls. His time in custody, though grueling, became a turning point, a moment when he outplayed the system and walked away a free man. What happens when the truth is buried by time? Don't miss our next jaw-dropping video, unraveling a mystery that time forgot. You'll be on the edge of your seat as we reveal secrets that have been hidden for years. Be the first to uncover the mystery by hitting that subscribe button now. You won't want to be left out of the next thrilling chapter. Join us and stay ahead. Click the bell for updates, and let's dive into this unbelievable story together.